Every gilded cage is built with walls of comfort. The only question is what you're paying for them.
When a public figure is assassinated in broad daylight, the event itself is a signal. It's loud, it's clear, and it's absolutely tragic. But in the hours and days that follow, that single clear signal can get completely lost in an overwhelming sea of noise. Today, we're going to deconstruct the assassination of Charlie Kirk, not just to understand what happened, but to try and untangle the two competing realities that exploded in its wake. You know, Utah's Governor Spencer Cox really hit the nail on the head here. This wasn't just a murder. This was a political assassination, and it struck right at the heart of our public discourse. The shockwaves from this went way beyond that one college campus, and it raised the stakes for everyone. And that's really the core conflict we're digging into. On one side, you have the official narrative, the one being pushed by law enforcement. But on the other side, you have this massive, sprawling, decentralized investigation by internet sleuths who are picking apart every single tiny detail. Our job is to navigate that space right in between them. Okay, let's dive in. So first things first, we have to establish the baseline. What are the facts? At least the facts as they've been reported by the authorities. This is what we're calling the signal, the clear official account of what went down. The timeline that investigators laid out is, on the surface, pretty straightforward. The gunman shows up, he gets into a rooftop position, he fires one shot, and then makes a pretty chaotic escape. This whole sequence of events, which was apparently captured on a bunch of different cameras, is really the foundation of the official case. And the suspect, a 22-year-old named Tyler Robinson, was caught after a family member actually came forward. Authorities described him as a guy who just blended in, a typical college-age kid, not someone who'd stand out. But they believe he specifically targeted Charlie Kirk. So the official case really rests on these key pillars. You've got DNA, a recovered weapon, witness and camera footage of the guy running away, and a confession note that his roommate found. On the surface, it seems like an open and shut case. But as we're about to see, every single one of these pillars has been challenged. And this is where the noise really begins. All right, so for every piece of official evidence, a counter-narrative just exploded online. This is the noise, a complete storm of questions, deep dive analysis, and just outright disbelief that challenges the entire official story. The first major point of doubt centers on the weapon itself. I mean, could the alleged shooter have realistically gotten that rifle ready to shoot in the way the FBI says he did? And the doubt here gets super specific, which is what makes it so sticky. The FBI claims it took 8 minutes to assemble, but firearms communities online, people who really know these weapons, are saying no way. Assembling a bolt-action rifle like this Mauser K98 under that kind of pressure and then trusting it's perfectly accurate for a long shot, they say that's a feat that would be incredibly difficult for anyone but a seasoned expert. And this, of course, leads to an even bigger question. If the rooftop shooter story has some problems, well, was the shot fired from somewhere else entirely? This is exactly where the second shooter theory really picks up steam. This slide just perfectly lays out the conflict. The official story says the shot came from the front, but countless online videos slow down the footage, frame by frame, arguing that Kirk's physical reaction, the way his body just sort of seized up and collapsed, suggests he was shot from behind. Some even point to what they claim as blood spatter appearing on his back first. This one discrepancy has fueled a massive, massive wave of speculation. But maybe the most intense scrutiny of all has been aimed at that supposed confession from Tyler Robinson. Was it a clear admission of guilt, or something else entirely? The central issue here is that there's just no verifiable evidence. The alleged confession note, the FBI says it was destroyed. The text messages, a lot of people online think the language just feels off, calling it a hoax. And then Discord, the platform where he supposedly planned all this, they put out a public statement saying, "Nope, we found no evidence of it here." Every one of these points just chips away at the trust in the official story. So, as all these doubts about the official narrative started to grow, a new, much more personal and, frankly, explosive theory began to take shape. And this one shifted the focus away from a lone gunman and put it squarely on Charlie Kirk's own widow, Erica Kirk. The whole framework for this theory is the idea of a psyop, which is short for a psychological operation. It suggests that the events we all saw unfold after the shooting weren't genuine, but were actually a performance designed to manipulate all of us. So to really get this, we need a clear definition. A psyop, according to military doctrine, is basically an operation that's meant to influence how people think and feel to get a specific result. Theorists claim that this is exactly what they were watching in the days after the assassination. So here's the real Socratic question you have to ask yourself. What demonstrable evidence is there that transforms all this circumstantial background into verifiable, actionable foreknowledge of her husband's murder? Theorists point to these 3 pillars. First, her proximity to power, like being in a pageant once owned by Donald Trump. Does that prove she's complicit, or does it just prove proximity? Second, her public behavior, which critics called scripted. But how much objective weight can you really give to someone's opinion of her composure? And third, her immediate promotion to CEO. Was this just a planned succession or a sign of something much more sinister? And this quote, this became a huge flashpoint. To her supporters, it was this moment of unbelievable Christian grace. But to online theorists, this public forgiveness was seen as just another line in a script, too polished, too prepared, and delivered to reinforce that lone gunman story. It's a perfect example of how one single event can be seen in 2 completely opposite ways. Okay, let's zoom out now, because this story isn't just about one man's death or a bunch of conspiracy theories. It's really a case study of our modern world, where truth itself feels like it's caught in the crossfire. This didn't happen in a vacuum. It feels like the violent endpoint of a trend of escalating political anger and hostility that's been building and building for years. And look, we can actually measure this trend. Federal data shows that 2023 saw a 10-year record high in prosecutions for threats against public officials. 75 people were charged. The environment is quantifiably more dangerous. So what we're seeing here is kind of a perfect storm. You have a rise in political violence happening at the exact same time as this catastrophic erosion of trust in our institutions, a skepticism that's been born from decades of people feeling lied to. And when people no longer believe the official story, well, they're going to create their own. One source describes this whole phenomenon as creating an alternate reality, where you build a completely separate worldview in the minds of your followers by just discrediting any objective source. This is the battlefield where the signal and the noise are constantly at war. And that leaves us with the final and most critical question. The official narrative and the online counternarratives, they just exist in parallel. The ultimate takeaway isn't just about what happened to Charlie Kirk. It's about the process we all use to decide what's real. In an age of information warfare, learning how to separate the signal from the noise isn't just an analytical skill anymore. It's a survival skill.